And I'm gonna start off with a roll call of our committee members to establish our quorum. Dr. Rita Ali, our City Council liaison. Andre Allen, our at-large member, present. Chief Demario Boone.
Present.
Ms. Solandra Birch. Mr. Terry Burnside.
Present.
Mrs. Allison Galvin.
Present.
Ms. Nina Gugis. Mr. Nikolai Graves. Ms. Lorraine King. Ms. Sharon Kramer.
Present.
Mrs. Megan Nguyen.
Present.
Pastor Tyson Parks. Mrs. Karen J. Wilson. Dr. Janice Zigardo.
Here.
And just for the record, although he's not he's a non-voting member, Interim Chief Theobald.
Here.
All right, Christina, I believe we have a quorum.
Okay.
Awesome, sounds good. Now I will move forward with a reading of the governor's order. Governor J.B. Brisker's Executive Order 2020-69 as extended by the Executive Order 2020-74 limits meetings to lesser than 25 persons or 25% of the overall room capacity. Governor J.B. Brisker's Executive Order 2020-07 as amended by the Executive Order 2020-33, Executive Order 2020-44, Executive Order -59, and Executive Order 74 requires that public bodies take steps to provide video, audio, or other telephonic access to meetings. The CDC recommends social distancing of at least 6 feet between persons. City Hall is currently closed to the public. To comply with these recommendations and requirement, this town hall meeting on March 4th, 2021, hosted by the Police and Community Relations Committee, is being held via Zoom while still complying with the spirit of the Open Meetings Act. The notice in the agenda for this town hall meeting is posted on the City of Peoria's website. After the meeting, the minutes from this town hall meeting will be posted on the City of Peoria's website. So now that we are official, we have our quorum established, we have read the governor's order. I would like to go ahead and just read our ground rules, and then we'll go ahead and get our meeting started today. The ground rules are as follows. If you are comfortable, please name yourself on the Zoom call. This is optional, but if you do plan on speaking, please identify yourself each time you comment for the record. Mute your microphone when you're not speaking. Each citizen will have up to 5 minutes to speak each time they raise their hand using the reaction icon, which is, one of these guys or the little thumbs up, depending on how you are feeling there. Our vice chair, Dr. Zigardo, will manage the time allotment to ensure that we stay the course. Please wait for the moderator to call on you to speak. I will be serving as the moderator this evening. Pre-submitted responses will be read at the end of the town hall meeting if there is time at the end of the hour. We do have a hard stop at 7 p.m. They will also be attached to the minutes when published and put on the website. And then the last rule is to please be respectful at all times. So I am super excited. This is our third series of our virtual town hall that the Advisory Committee on Police and Community Relations is hosting. The goal of this is to continue to build the bridge and strengthen the bridge that is police and community relations. For the record, I see that Ms. Karen J. Wilson is in the building, so I have to announce her presence just so that is reflected in the record. How you doing, Ms. Wilson?
All right, how's it going?
Good. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. So I see we have, if I'm looking at my boxes correctly, looks like we have one citizen with us today. Others may hop on as they see fit, and that is definitely fine. And so I would like our citizen, if you can just introduce yourself for the record and just state what brought you here today.
Hi, my name is Kristen Greer, and I just wanted to get on the call so I can get some more information about this committee, and then also just see if there is going to be any discussion about the process of selecting the next police chief. And just to be more informed. Thank you.
Think you're on mute, Andre.
You're muted, Dre.
Oh, thank you for being here. We appreciate it. You know, your willingness to be here and learn more about the committee and learn more about the process right now. As far as the first question, I believe was about the current police chief search. Interim Chief Theobald, do you have any updates that maybe you can provide? I know you're not necessarily human resources, but maybe you can just provide some type of context around where we are with the current search.
Sure, I'll try. Like I said, HR handles all that, Andre, as you know. I don't quote me on the hard dates, but I believe we're getting to within a week or so of not we, HR, compiling resumes. So I think that deadline's approaching, if I'm not mistaken. In addition to that, there has been some surveys sent out for some community involvement that was been posted on a couple of different sites, I think, including the city website. So that's something new. Getting some feedback from the community of what they're looking for in the next chief. In addition to that, there's a separate type, more specific survey that went out to all the employees of the police department. To my knowledge, we've never done anything like that before. So that came out of some idea either from the firm that's doing the work on finding the next chief, or HR department, maybe a combination of both, I'm not sure. And then I think the optimistic date on a selection after interviews and whatnot is somewhere around May, I believe. And again, I think I previously said, you know, that's kind of what their timeline is. Whether or not they really hit that deadline, I don't know. You know, that's a lot of information and a lot of work to get done on the selection process between now and then. But I believe that's what they're looking for. So we're getting there, I guess. We're getting there.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Dr. Zigardo?
Thanks, Chief, and thanks, Andre, and also thanks for your question. Is your name Cece, or is it says Cece on your screen, is it Kristen?
You can call me Cece.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for the question. Chief, you said a search firm. Who selected this? Once again, understanding that you're not HR. Did the city select the search firm, or did the police department? And do you know anything about the search firm? Do they just specialize in police, or are they just an executive level? Do they just generally executive level search firm?
Moss might have to back me up on this one if she knows anything further. I can only tell you what I think I know, Janice. I believe, as far as the agency goes that's involved with search, does a lot of searching for the city or for department head level employees. But in reference to the police chief search, and I don't know if it's directly from this firm or not, there's a couple former, I believe retired, if I'm not mistaken, chiefs that are kind of centralized to the actual chief search part of it. So I think it's all kind of one entity, but so there's some former chiefs that have a lot of experience in that area helping with conducting the search. The police department is not involved with it, nor definitely I'm not involved with it. So it all goes out of HR and the city manager's office. So that's how that's proceeding.
Dr. Zigardo, did you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, so it's interesting that you said it's former retired chiefs. Do they have any kind of non-police? I mean, I know I'm probably asking you something that you might not know the answer to, but do they have anybody like us, like some just civilians or community representation, or how is that how is the community represented? Which I'm not sure I expect you to know the answer to this, but if you do, I think we need to hear it.
So, yeah, so what I know is that at some point, I think they're just the person or persons that when I'm referencing the chiefs or retired chiefs, whichever they are kind of just like the point of contact of filtering things out. I do know that at some point there's going to be some sort of community panels and some sort of interaction with that. I don't know if that has to do with an interview panel or more than one interview panel. I'm just assuming that that's what's going to take place based on what I know at this point. So, yeah. And
I know that
if
the
Moss has
search
anything
did
more
reach
on
out to some, sorry, the search did reach out. I know they did some preliminary things. I know they reached out to me, being the chair of this group, to kind of ask for my feedback. But I'm glad that the chief did bring up the survey that's out there right now. I've shared it on my social media, but for the sake of this meeting, please make sure that you visit the City of Peoria's Facebook page, and I believe it's also on the website. I've seen it posted on the Nextdoor app as well too. It's a quick survey. It's 11 questions. It looks like the survey closes March 19th. So we still got a couple weeks for you all to complete the survey. Obviously I would definitely want CC to complete it, but also members of the advisory committee as well too, solicit your feedback there. And then also just for the sake of the record too, there are paper copies of the surveys available at all Peoria Public Library locations. So if electronic technology is a barrier for you, you can get a paper copy at the Peoria Public Library locations. And so that is something that I want to put out there. And then CC, what was your second question? I'm sorry. I know you asked about the search with the chief, and then was there a follow-up question?
I just wanted to know in general what this committee does.
Okay, sure. Does anybody else from the committee want to take a stab at it, or do you want me all to give the cliff notes? I'm fine with digressing. Excuse me.
You can do the cliff notes. It's all good.
Okay, will do. So this committee was formed in partnership with the NAACP, the Department of Justice, to essentially be a third-party reviewer, if you will, of complaints or grievances that are brought against the Peoria Police Department. So let's say, for instance, citizen John Doe has a complaint about a traffic stop. He can submit a complaint or grievance through the Peoria Police Department. You can either do that online, or they have those forms actually at the police station downtown. You would submit that complaint, and then it would go to through the Peoria Police Department's formal investigation process. So that is led by their lieutenant of professional standards. And then they would work with the supervisor, I believe, of the officer that is involved in that grievance. They would review all the evidence and then make a finding. The citizen, John Doe, would receive a letter in the mail letting him know what the resolution was. So was the original decision upheld, or was a new decision rendered? If citizen John Doe does not agree with the finding, at the bottom of that letter, it would say you can take your grievance or complaint to the Advisory Committee on Police and Community Relations. And then they would bring that to us. They would come to they can reach out to us personally. They can come to one of our meetings and speak their piece. And then what happens is the way our guidelines are set up right now is, from our current committee, we will have a subcommittee that will review John Doe's complaint. So we will go down to the Peoria Police Department, and we'll have access to certain documentation, body cam footage, possible police report. It all depends on where the complaint or grievance is. If it's tied up in some legality, like maybe it's an ongoing case, there could be some barriers there. But for the most part, we would be able to review that information at the Peoria Police Department. And then essentially we would make a non-binding recommendation to the chief of police based off of what we find. We do not have the power to necessarily overturn a decision. So that is something that I do want to be out there just to manage expectations, but we can make a non-binding recommendation on what we feel based off of the documentation that we reviewed. Does anyone else, did I leave out anything, or Chief Theobald, if I left out anything, please provide some additional context.
I think you got it down, Andre. That was pretty good. Yeah, as far as the whole perspective, I think, yeah, I can't think of anything to add at this point.
Thank you. Dr. Zigardo?
Andre, I think you did a great job explaining the complaint process. And CC, I think the other thing that the committee does is we host meetings like this so that we can try to get the community talking to each other and talking to the police. Trying to, I mean, we're not really to say that we're a middleman, but just to try to listen and be out in the community and bring any concerns that we hear about to the police, kind of as a buffer or a communications conduit, I guess is the word.
And, you know, one of the things that I would love to see us, and part of that is doing these virtual town hall series, is the relations piece of our name and trying to either build the bridge, strengthen the bridge between police and community relations, you know, and I think that's the vessel that this committee has. Although our original, you know, origin, if you will, is to field complaints or grievances, I think we could do a lot more than that. Obviously, we don't want to lose sight of our original scope, but there are some things that we can do with this platform to build better police and community relations, which I think we can all agree are very important when it comes to the public safety of our city. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. No problem. No problem. And so, you know, ideally, you know, we would always love to have more citizen participation, you know, but we'll continue to keep priming the pump and creating these outlets. You know, the goal is, you know, once we are on the other side of COVID, you know, which I hope is very soon. Hopefully the light is at the end of the tunnel here soon. I would love to do maybe these more and more of the community spaces, you know, rotating at different areas of the city to hopefully maybe get some better engagement. I know it. Not everybody is excited about hopping on a Zoom call at 6 p.m. I get it. I've got Zoom fatigue and Microsoft Teams fatigue and Google Play and all these teams. I'm fatigued, all right. But at the end of the day, this is very important. And so hopefully, you know, if we're able to get back into the community in a physical space, excuse me, we'll be able to have some better turnout. So, you know, you come in today, you can be, you know, a preacher of this gospel that, hey, they're here, they want to listen, you know, they're here, they're cool people, you know what I mean? And you're always a good cheerleader for Peoria. And so we appreciate you, that's for sure. Does anyone else have any questions, comments, concerns that they would like to add? Anything to get some conversation started? I do have some conversation starter questions, but I do want to open up the floor for anything that's organic out there that anybody might want to bring up or discuss.
I think CC has her hand up there. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, CC.
So I know that you all stated that you posted this information on the City of Peoria website. Was it posted anywhere else? Because I heard about it just because of who I know, but are there any other avenues, I guess, or any other places that it's being posted or publicized?
That's a good question. And so it goes out on multiple platforms. It goes through the traditional mediums that the city publicizes things. So the Nextdoor app, a press release will go out to the media. Hence, we have WMBD/YZZ on the call right now. Thank you for being here. It goes on the City of Peoria's Facebook page. Also, it's on the City of Peoria's website as well too. Now, I understand that not everybody is finding out information in those spheres. You know, I'm one to contest that. we've got to hit the ground, even harder to up our participation, and really being on the grassroots level. So there's definitely more that we can do, but those are the current means that we are using to publicize these events. And we would take any suggestions that you may have to publicize these events.
I was just about to ask her, what do you recommend? Yeah.
I mean, just social media is what I was thinking, but I just know I just hadn't really seen it, and I haven't really heard anybody else talking about it, like even the people in my circle. So I'm not even sure if they're aware of this committee. So I'll definitely be talking to them about it, and start talking to other people about this to let them know that there is this committee out here, and this is an option. This is a space where we can come and talk with local law enforcement.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I definitely see us being more intentional and reaching out to groups, whether that's the NAACP, whether that is the various non-for-profits in the area, and just letting them know, like, hey, we're here, we invite you to these, just being more intentional about how we extend the olive branch. I think it's very important. I think it's easy to rely on social media. If you post it, they will come, but we all know that that's not the case, especially as someone who works in student affairs. Just because you post something or you send an email don't mean the student's gonna come. So we just got to be more intentional and let people know that this is a safe space. And that's why we're having these, because we want to build that trust and that relational piece. I do know that some people have trepidation, speaking in a space, especially when it comes to law enforcement. And that's why we want to address this, because again, a positive relationship between police and community relations, is important for public safety. And so definitely we'll keep priming the pump and keep at it. Does anybody else have any other suggestions of how we can better promote these? Megan, you got anything, Megan? You always have great ideas. You sit back and observe, and then you hit us with something. You're silent but deadly. You got any good, maybe suggestions on, especially with your role as far as within community development?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've taken it upon myself to just promote it personally through all the platforms that I have. I think that would be a great way to reach people that we know, and get the word out even more. I am trying my best to keep pushing it on social media too. I don't know what our options are for like mailers, if we have any of those resources to get the word out a little bit more. I would like to see it maybe on the radio too, just some local stations to encourage people who may not have computer technology and such, to also spread the word. But I think just passing it along, word of mouth is really powerful too. So.
Thank you. Dr. Zigardo?
Yeah, Megan, thank you. I think it's good to pass it on social media, but I mean, I put it on Facebook. I admit I'm not a huge Facebook user, and I can't imagine anybody saw it on my social media, but I think it would help. I think it helped to have the first 3 dates publicized in advance. I think it would be great to have for us to agree on the next 3 dates. And I'd like to see more notice in front of the RSVP date. I'd like us to start asking for the RSVP a week in advance. I think we barely had, I don't know, it seemed to me, I felt like we barely had 24 hours before the noon on Tuesday deadline. So I'd like to see that letter coming out with all of the dates. And I don't know how hard this is. I don't want to ask the city or Christina to jump through hoops backwards, but maybe have RSVP for all 3 dates at the same time. And I don't know if that's unreasonable. I can imagine that might get unwieldy, but I mean, at least until it does become unwieldy, I'd like to get it announced much earlier. I feel like I got the email at some point on Monday, and the deadline was at noon on Tuesday with the beautiful announcement. I'd like to send out one with all 3 dates and just have people say, yeah, I can't come to April, but I can come to June, or I can come to May, or something. It felt a little tight personally to me, but thank you.
the RSVP deadline for attendees was actually today at noon. The RSVP for us to establish our quorum as committee members was Tuesday.
Okay, I apologize. I read it wrong. Okay, sorry. But I still think we should have a little more than I think we could have a little bit more. And if we add the future dates in there too, people can select maybe from 3 dates at a time.
Yeah,
Thanks.
no,
Thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah, sure. No problem. And I think that, more we can put it out there. I think as a committee, we have to, myself included, we have to own this and really promote it. I know that the communication that this committee is sending out on behalf of the city is, intertwined in all the other communications that the city is sending out, whether you're getting information about stormwater utility fee or you're getting information about the city council meeting and so forth. And so I think it's very important that we're intentional, and that's something that maybe at our next committee meeting, because we do have a committee meeting next Thursday, we could talk about, our internal communication plan. I think it's obviously great, and Stacy Peterson has been a great partner as well too. But what are some things that we can do as a committee? Now that I know some church services are opening back up. Do maybe a couple committee members are allowed to maybe go to a church service and talk about it, or whether it's visit a non-for-profit or in their board of directors or something, just some out of the box things that we can think about just to help get the word out. Yeah. Anything else? Does anybody else have anything for the good of the order? All right, so I just have a couple of conversation starters, and then from there, we'll see how time is looking. And so I guess my generic question that I have for you all, and I think it's good, even though although we only have one citizen here with us today, I think for us as a committee to get together outside of just our loan meeting per month, I think is good. Kind of allows us to build some synergy, so I think that's pretty good. But what does a positive relationship look like between the police and the community? If you had a magic 8-ball, you can make a wish, and this is what a positive relationship between the police and community, a visualization. What does that look like?
I'll just go. Mutual trust, I think, is really important between the community and our law enforcement officials. Having or creating a safe space for all members of our community to not only help us with the issues that we face, but just feel like they have somebody who's going to listen and be proactive about their concerns and that their concerns are valid. So I think it starts with the strong communication, as all long-lasting relationships do, and just empathy on both sides, because that's kind of where that communication is really important. You're not really gonna be able to come together if you don't have an open mind and open perspective. So I would start there, and I think that's what we're all trying to work on as far as the committee goes.
Thank you, Megan. Chief Boone, I saw you getting ready to unmute there.
Yeah, I would kind of agree with what Megan was saying. Just give and take on both ends, transparency above all, from the police side and as well as from citizens. And then just basically educating one another on each other's roles. Just as officers need to be educated on, social emotional needs of the public, and things of that nature to address issues. The public definitely needs to be knowledgeable of the laws and the things that the officers enforce, what they can and can't do, things like that. So there's not the butting of heads when the two meet. So, but the biggest thing is definitely transparency and that big word empathy on both ends.
I agree, empathy. I see that we have a second citizen that has entered the Zoom room. Would you please, for the record, introduce yourself, please, Nia?
Hi, my name is Nia McFarland Dry. Is there anything specific that we should be saying in this introduction?
You know what? We need your blood type, your birthday, your social security card, and the
I'm
credit
trying to
card
find
number
out my blood type myself,
of
but
your.
actually,
And I need the credit card information for your highest credit,
no,
limited credit. No, I'm just
I'm
joking. No,
just
you're fine.
I'm just trying to remain an informed citizen.
No, that's awesome. No, thank you for being here with us, Nia. We really appreciate it. If you do have anything to say that you want to bring to the group here, you'll be called on just by using the reaction key, like so, or you can use a thumbs up, whatever you feel. I'll call on you, and then you'll have up to a 5-minute speaking limit each time you're called on. So just a little context there.
Thank you.
So I know you just hopped on, and so I got to put you on the hot seat just real fast. But you said you came here because you're a concerned citizen. Is that the primary cause for being here today?
No, I said I want to remain an informed citizen.
Oh, okay. Want to remain. Thank you for remaining informed. It's very, very important there. Thank you. And we're talking about right now, if you had a magic 8-ball, what does a positive relationship look like between the police department and our community? And so would you mind painting that picture? What does that look like for you, Nia?
I think for me, it would really begin with trust and really trusting that there were no ulterior motives in certain approaches between police interactions and citizens. It would look like trust. It would look like I don't know. I don't want to say I don't know. I think it would take me a lot longer than 5 minutes to answer because I would ramble on and on before I got to 5 words that I could think about. But it would definitely be trust. It would definitely be true community, like a true village. It would look like having input in certain policies. It would look like just trusting that certain people are there to protect you. It wouldn't look like it would feel safe. And yeah, I think that's what it boils down to: safety, trust, community. I think those 3 words are what it would look like vaguely for me.
Thank you, Nia. Greatly articulated. Appreciate it. Just for the record, I see that committee member Solandra Birch has entered the building. Hello there.
Hello.
Glad to have you here with us. Thank you. Always a pleasure. And so some of the things that I saw that was said: trust, empathy. So what are some organic ways that we build trust? Because I think not even in just police and community relations, but when you think of any relationship, trust is the foundation of any relationship. So how do we build that trust? I see Ms. Sharon, you have your thumbs up. You want to go ahead and go?
Okay, now that I figured out mute, I did do the survey, and I really liked some of the questions on the survey. And I think something that's very important when you're building trust, you have to be someone has to be willing to say they were wrong when they were wrong. It's almost like you have to be courageous to take responsibility when things didn't go well, when things did go well. And the other thing I really liked on the survey, it talked about somebody that's willing to challenge the community and people, especially when it comes to race relations and racial issues. Somebody has got to step up and challenge Peoria's leaders, so that we can have an open discussion. And some of these conversations are going to be difficult. They're going to be very difficult conversations, but these are conversations that absolutely have to take place. So certainly, to build trust, you have to have some courage, and take your losses when you take your losses.
Thank you, Ms. Sharon. Terry? You're muted, sir. There you go.
Come on, thank you.
Yep.
Just to echo some of the same sentiments as Ms. Kramer, as Ms. Nia, and Ms. Gray as well. One of the key things I think, aside from transparency, is just the opportunity to increase open dialogue. A few years ago, there was Chief Mitchell, and how retired Chief Mitchell, how he was open to some of the dialogue that was being created in a 61605 zip code dealing with it in the town hall. So we try to circle back sometime, because we actually had two back in the day with the town hall, so 61605, because it was poorly attended the first time because of lack of getting it out there to invite people to it. But then when they got out, then we came back, and at the meeting, we actually took a poll. And after I had a conversation with Chief Mitchell, and actually when he welcomed a form of that kind of a setting, to entertain some conversation and questions from community members to get input and create, like I said, that open dialogue. So since then, in a different administration, posed that same question, and they were more concerned about it getting out of control. But my thing was, if it's moderated correctly, somebody in the right positions, that thing could have went well, and that's something probably should entertain moving forward. Just that creating that open dialogue.
No, I agree. I think that having that safe space to have those uncomfortable conversations is how we move the needle forward. I couldn't agree more, Terry. Allison?
So I took the survey as well, also promoted it on my social medias. My biggest thing obviously was transparency and trust as well. But I think when it comes down to it, a relationship has to be seen as equal starting off. And a lot of people, when you talk with, citizens and police, people already assume that the badge makes you more powerful, seen more higher, that the relationship is unequal. Of course, law enforcement, they enforce the law. But the issue is how they enforce it, and the force they use to enforce it. And that's the issue, is having that dialogue obviously is going to be difficult, mostly because it's kind of like, okay, so I'm say some, like my cousin, she's a nurse, and I try to tell her how to do her job, but I'm not a nurse. Someone would get insulted, of course. But at the same time, if obviously something's not going right and it's affecting my well-being as well, I feel I have the right to talk about it as well. And if you want to show me what your job entails, like the training and stuff, like that's something too. When it comes in that dialogue, the police officers have to explain exactly what their training entails, what they've learned, not how many years they've been on the job, not how many calls they've been to, what's happened in those calls. Your badge isn't mean that you're higher up than anybody. And that's just like the type of view that a lot of citizens see. They're like, well, I don't have a uniform and badge. So that doesn't mean, so it means I have no say. Just that's been a lot of theme when speaking with a lot of people about police issues. And we have to kind of, again, level that playing field of, okay, like, we are two people just here caring about a common issue, and we want to find solutions for it. Doesn't matter that one's a police officer, or that, you know, one is a teacher. It matters that you both are worried about an issue and want to find better ways, because obviously the current ways right now aren't working for everybody, and that is the key goal, to make the community safe equally for everyone. And I think that's what a lot of people forget, is everyone's like, why want my community safe? But equally safe, because I know, again, a lot of people, just from talking with them, people who live in the 61605, can, you know, is telling me constantly, well, when the police respond to 61615 or 616, like just different zip codes, it takes them a lot longer, or they get treated differently. So again, that's something that we just really have to come down to, is that we want the community to be safely, like, we all want to be safe equally. And that's also, I feel like, something that has to be in there. Because honestly, when we all come together for one common goal, obviously everyone's going to have different ways. But again, we have to take a chance for all of those. So yes, those conversations are going to become full of tension. They're going to become, sometimes, you know, people might want already come in, you know, expecting things. And then when it doesn't go their way, they get upset or frustrated or angry. Those are the type of emotions that we need to have in a room, actually, to find something. Because again, we don't experience the same situations with police officers. We've all had different experiences with them, so we have to respect each other. And again, sometimes our biases, you know, actually are, you know, opposite of how police officers are, for some police officers, but some police officers fit the whole stereotypical view, and vice versa for anybody. So I think that's the biggest issue, is, again, we need a safe place where people can actually say exactly how they're feeling and why they feel that way, and we need to hear them for what they are. And that's what we need in a chief, is someone who's willing to have those blunt conversations and those unhappy people. Just like customer service, not every customer we're going to have is going to be 100% happy on that phone call, or 100% you know, ready to engage in the conversation with you. And I feel like that's why trust, transparency, and just being able to be vulnerable are a huge thing.
Thank you, Allison. Appreciate that. Miss Karen J. Wilson, you always have so much great insight on this. What solutions do you have that can improve police and community relations?
Well, I would like to, I think that it all goes with the community, and having, we can't reiterate that enough, about having the police actually live in the community. When you mentioned earlier about having a wish list or an 8-ball or whatever, I would like to see it where something happens and the community police, they know that neighborhood, and they're like, oh, that's so-and-so's kid, or what. I don't know if we even get back to that, but how about when something happens, like on the mental health scope, instead of calling the police, why aren't people educated to know that you can call ERS? Or if, like I said, I'm just, you know, spare no expense. How about if we had somebody from ERS, or a on-call psychologist that could go out to a call and help talk to somebody, instead of calling the police, and then they're in a mental health crisis, and then, you know, all these, you know, the high profile cases, and you know, different things get out of hand. If you had a trained professional who's trained in mental health, dealing with that person, instead of I mean, just like with the situation in Atlanta, he's backing up the drive-through. Why would they call the police? Why didn't they call a tow truck? You know what I'm saying? Or somebody, like, why was he drinking? Why was he drunk in the first place? You know, start there. So that's what I would like to see, is the police having that type of relationship with the community that they are entailed with protecting. And then all those barriers and the trust and all the other stuff come hand in hand.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to share anything? Cece?
So, for the part where you were talking about like, what do we need or what would it look like as far as like a positive relationship? The first thing that I kind of thought about was, there has to be some kind of acknowledgement that there is a need for change in the first place. And then you can kind of go from there. Of course, it's trust. There's a big issue with citizens who are fearful of the police for different reasons. And so we have to ultimately figure out how to try to, like you guys have been saying, establish these positive relationships and foster these relationships between the citizens and everyone else involved. I do think, as Megan had talked about, empathy, that's huge. When we talk about, as an educator, I talk about empathy all of the time with my students. And then Chief Boone just, mentioned SEL, social emotional learning. I think that's something that has to be a part of the education, definitely on the law enforcement side, because a lot of times what we see is just force, and we don't necessarily see officers trying to deal with situations when it comes to social or the emotional aspect. So those were my thoughts. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. No, great thoughts. Great thoughts. Anyone else have any comments, questions, comments, concerns they would like to bring up before I ask Christina if we have any pre-submitted responses? Dr. Zigardo?
Not to put him on the spot, but I'd like to hear how Chief views a positive, healthy relationship between citizens and police.
Yeah, get unmuted here, yes. So first of all, I mean, everybody made a lot of good, valid points. A lot of stuff that we think about all the time. And I mean, nailed it. I mean, as far as I'm concerned. And, I think the perspective of what we have to address and think about, and it's kind of sometimes two different scenarios. One is sometimes when you're dealing with the public or an individual or a family or whatever, it could be perhaps a bad day for them. It could be their worst day, and sometimes depending on what kind of call or what the incident is, when the police show up. There's a lot of tension there, maybe not towards the police, or, maybe it has something to do with anything. So I think what I'm getting at this is, every incident, every scenario can be different, but sometimes that tension's high initially, and, to break down that barrier, it would be nice to have more follow-up and more feedback, right? Because it's hard to assess everything based on if you're trying to interact with somebody on their worst day. But if you can go back a day or two later or a week later, or if you see them in a parking lot somewhere and you remember them and you can talk to them, you're going to have a different interaction between that police officer and that citizen. And I think that's important. And what I would hope is that we can try to go more in that direction and find the time to have our officers available to do that, as opposed to always going to the incident. And I think that's where you start to develop a better line of that community-based policing, if that makes sense in the big perspective. Sometimes I think officers are confused of what the public wants from them, right? Somebody may, in some instances say, you know, I don't want anything to do with the police, but if I get an offender bender there, I want them right now and do a traffic report, and I don't want anything else to do with them. Other people, you know, may want more interaction with them, publicly, to help them address multiple kind of issues. And I think nowadays more than ever, you know, we have to not only allow but train our officers to be very much multitaskers. And I think I don't remember. I think it was Karen that mentioned, you know, the mental health aspect, right? I mean, those instances happen way more frequently than they used to. A lot of those calls come in every day. Some of them are the officers have to go to because there's a safety aspect to it. But you don't want to go there and say, I'm here to help, and then have something even worse happen, right? I mean, that's not the intent there. You mentioned ERS, you mentioned other options. And ERS they're great, believe me. I've worked with them lots, and they're fantastic, and I'm happy to have them, and I wish we had 10, 20 more. But the call comes in, and the officer gets sent to those scenarios, at least initially, until they can sort it out on occasion. So lots of good points. Certainly sat here and listened to them all. And, you know, I think if, you know, I'm speaking here as a chief, and some of you alluded to the survey was referencing, you know, what your expectation is of what a chief would be. And I can see that, and I get that. That's the leader of an organization and so forth. But, you know, when I look at it here on our department, you know, we're 200 plus here, right? The chiefs have spoke on that wheel. So the other 199 too need to be educated and be able to interact on a level that the community would expect too. So, yeah, I appreciate all the comments, and I think they're good.
Thank you, Chief. Allison, did you have a comment?
Yeah. So Chief, when you were talking about like how you believe that like the community, you know, wants, you know, the police there for a fender bender right away, but for other situations, not really. What did you mean by that? And like, what, I guess, like made you think that like that's how people feel, you know, and like how would you respond to someone if they had that type of I guess idea or opinion about that?
Sorry, Allison, I hit the wrong button there. So I guess, Allison, what I was getting at is there's it's kind of the different ends of the perspectives what I'm getting at, and that would be what I'm comparing to is someone that hardly ever has any interaction with the police, but you know they get in a traffic accident, because I think, you know, honestly, if that's something that can happen, right? There might be an expectation that that's the only interaction they end up having with the police officer. So the expectation is, you know, they want to get it done, they want to get it over with, and then they move on. So that's like one perspective is what I'm getting at. And then other perspectives have a desire to have the community policing aspect is what is my point. They want a response from a police in a neighborhood, more involvement, all those things. So two different perspectives there. And I guess from an officer's point of view, what you can have is, depending on any call, any circumstance, you're not going to understand that perspective until you talk to that person. Does that make more sense?
Yeah, that does. I guess just like my biggest thing is, you know, I guess, you know, from a position of like being a police officer and having to you know, walk into different crises and stuff, like the pressure and everything, you know, and then you have the community wanting certain standards and stuff. Like, does that ever, you know, go into account? Like, does like the community's opinion ever like weigh on someone like in your position or like a police officer's position? Like, when you're going through, like when you're going to go to a scene, or when, you know, after a scene, like, do you ever kind of self-reflect and kind of think about like the well-being of others, especially in the community? You know, what primarily is the end goal, I guess, like, you know, when you're in the community, like, what are you wanting from the community, and what do you hope that the community perceives from the police department? Like, what is it that you want the community to kind of view the police department as? Because obviously that has changed completely with the current, you know, environment that has happened in 2020 and now.
Okay, I'll try to break that down. As far as I mean, there's a lot of questions that could be answered there, I guess, but I think that, you know, and I think I remember someone saying it. I mean, you talk about, you know, mutual respect. I mean, we obviously, and a citizen should expect that, you know, when an officer arrives and treats everybody with respect. And I think Allison, if you're talking about maybe what wears on some officers, and I can't speak for all of them, but I think, you know, I've talked to enough of them to, you know, maybe give that perspective, I guess. But you know, if the expectation from the citizen is that they should be treated with respect, I think that's a fair expectation. They should. And if we have an officer that's doing that, right, and somebody already said it earlier, it's like you're not going to get that across the board. Like, you know, nobody's perfect. Nobody has a perfect day. But if the expectation is to treat somebody with respect, I think the officer would sometimes, at some point, have some back. And I think what wears on them sometimes is if the good ones out there that are trying to be respectful still get none back, that's what might wear on them. Does that kind of answer that? I know it was kind of like a lot there, but
No, that's perfect. Because I always want to know, like, you know, again, this is the type of communication that we're needing, you know, for our community and law enforcement, is that, you know, we're all, again, human, we're all people, you know, we're all wanting, you know, to equally feel safe in our home, equally feel like the same respect that, you know, from the officers that we give to them, we receive back. You know, and we don't feel like we're going to be treated a certain way or judged just because of who we are or what we choose to do. And because, again, you know, even when it comes to like just a traffic stop, I mean, people are terrified. And, you know, that's something that obviously police officers themselves too obviously are affected when, you know, they don't know how to talk to someone. When now, I was just reading some articles about police officers feeling like, you know, when they're afraid of like situations when, you know, if someone is afraid, how are they supposed to communicate them and calm them down in that process?
sure. And I think just to wrap it up, I don't know if Andre, if that's where we're going with that, but you know, the general rule of thumb, you know, treat somebody the way you want to be treated. And not only that, you know, to piggyback on that, don't just treat somebody the way you want to be treated. Treat somebody the way, you know, you expect your mother to be treated, or, you know, so forth. You know, and even with that, you know, it's going to happen to police officers. Again, if you're talking to somebody or if you're on a call where it's somebody's worst day, you may not get that back, but our expectation is that we still hold that to our standard, and that's the way it should be.
Great dialogue. Appreciate everyone's comments tonight. I definitely believe that this was beneficial. We are at our conclusion of our third virtual town hall. Just for the record, and they will be attached if any were submitted. Christina, were there any pre-submitted responses that will be included with this recording today?
There were not.
Okay, sounds good, sounds good. At this time, I would like to seek a motion to adjourn our virtual town hall series tonight.
Oh, I have one question.
Sure.
I'm sorry, I did come in late, so if this was covered, I apologize. But I have seen people post the survey around Facebook. I was wondering how or what the plan was to encourage more participation from citizens who may not have seen the survey shared on Facebook, or if there would be an opportunity for someone to maybe go door knocking, or like how was participation from citizens going to be encouraged during this process?
Andre, you want me to take that one real quick?
Sure.
Okay. I know they pushed it out a lot with the media initially. I think it's open for another. I think it's the 19th, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know if they're going to push it out again, but I did see, and I don't have an opportunity to watch a lot of news, but I did see it on a lot of outlets, and it was out there and being promoted that way, which I think it did get a little bit of traction there for a few days. So I don't know if they're going to push it out again, but I know initially when it first came out, it was out there being advertised.
Yeah, thank you, Chief. And I know we're in overtime, but I think us sharing it, with our own networks, I just received it. My pastor just dropped it in our group chat like literally 10 minutes ago. Like, I don't know if it's the power of God and he was just listening to this virtual town hall or what, but like he literally just dropped a survey in the group chat. And so I think that we have to be the promoters of it as well too, because I think that in order to really get that organic feedback, people want to hear from the unusual suspects. They don't want to hear from the normal, influencers, your quote unquote normal community leaders. They want to hear from the person in the barbershop or at the hair salon or in the grocery store, like, hey, did you see that survey for the chief of police that they have out here? And maybe, they decided to do it because the cashier at Kroger's told them about it, and so that's the type of organic marketing that we need from this. But definitely good question, Nia. I appreciate the follow-up, Chief. At this time, I would like to seek a motion to adjourn our meeting for tonight.
I motion to adjourn.
I second.
First by Dr. Zigardo and second by Karen J. Wilson. At this time, I'm going to perform a roll to confirm this. Andre Allen, yay. Chief Boone.
Yep.
Ms. Solandra Birch.
Yes.
Mr. Terry Burnside.
Yes.
Ms. Allison Galvin.
Yay.
Ms. Sharon Kramer.
Yes.
Ms. Megan Nguyen.
Yes.
Ms. Karen J. Wilson.
Yes.
Dr. Zigardo.
Yes.
All right. At this time at 7:05, we have adjourned. The next steps, just for the record, our committee will meet next Thursday and we will do a recap of our virtual town hall series and talk about what the next steps look like if this is something that we're going to be able to continue. So please look out, for future communication if we're able to pick this back up. But that is the next steps with this. Thank you to Nia. Thank you to CC for being here today. And also thank you to WMBD YZZ for being with us as well too. And you all have a safe evening and we'll see you all soon.